Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. You are tuned in to Astrology Hub's weekly astrological weather. This is your place for getting practical guidance for navigating the cosmic tides, and not only just navigating, but thriving with the cosmic tides. My name is Amanda Walsh. I'm the founder of Astrology Hub, and I am here with Ortelee, your favorite weather woman, predictive astrologer. And before we dive in and start talking about the intensity scale and the energies for this week, I wanted to extend a very special invitation to all of you. We are hosting our 6th annual yearly forecast event. This is going to be a 2021 forecast panel. It's entirely free. It's featuring 13 different astrologers and giving their read on the energies of 2021, how to work with the different transits, what are the main themes going to be. And as always, one of the best parts is actually seeing their interaction. So that is happening on December 10th and 11th. You are all invited. You just go to astrologyhub.com/2021. So it's astrologyhub.com/2021. And it's 2 days of panels, about 2 hours each. You can hop in and listen to as much as you can. We'll also send out recordings to anybody who registers. So if you can't make it live, we will have the recordings for those of you who sign up. And if you're an Inner Circle member, you do not need to register. So just, I know that they are always asking, do not register. You are automatically going to get everything you need. Plus, you're going to get all the recordings that you'll have in your membership portal. Okay. So, Anne, welcome.
Hi.
It's good to have you here.
How was your 50 week last week?
Well, it was funny. I got through the week and went, okay, if that was the worst of it, like that's all right. I can do this. It was super intense. And like I was saying to you before we went live, it was almost like this coagulation of a bunch of dissonant energy all happening at the same time, to the point where at certain moments I was laughing because it was like, is this seriously all happening at the same time? And then I just sort of thought of Mars stationing and how that like super energetic forward moving motion would feel for us when it's stopped. And so I just sort of laughed and went, okay, we could do this.
What it feels like. That's what it feels like. Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
So what would you say if last week was a 50 on a scale of 1 to 10? What are you giving this week?
This week's much easier. I'm going to give it like a 7, 8.
Okay.
It's not as intense. Mars is still stopped. He's basically at the same degree from November 1st through November 24th. So he's parked at 15, but he is just moving. You know how like when your car's in the snow and then it just starts to feel like it's getting a little traction. So it's going to feel like that. So it's not going to feel like it's moving rapidly, but it is going to feel like it's shifting and moving forward. So that's good. And as it does that forward motion, we're all going to feel like, oh, okay, I'm moving forward. And then, of course, last week, Thursday, was the 2 big guys, Jupiter and Pluto, meeting again for the 3rd and final time. But they were also meeting on the point of the Saturn Pluto conjunction in January. They're meeting at 22. So it was on a world point. So it brought up things that were going to affect your world or that would be public, or it just was very heavy. I know I had a full slate of clients on Thursday, and I just was like, I don't have the energy to do them. And so I had Rose move them all to this week. And I went to bed for 5 hours. I went to bed at like 2:30 and got up at 8. Wow. And then I was up for 2 hours and then I went to bed again. Because the other part of this was a lot of people weren't sleeping and I wasn't sleeping well, because it's a lot of times when there's this much energy, remember, it's going to show on intellectual air, ideas, going to show in fire, vision. How do we get things moving? What do we see? Emotional, water, feeling, and then earth, physical. So those 2 big guys were, like just parked. And I was like, they're big in my chart. They don't actually talk. Well, they do talk to each other by a semi-sextile. Yeah, I guess they do. But I was just tired. And I just was like, I don't have the energy to read people. I need to go to bed. And that's how my moon's in Pisces. So my best thing is take a shower or go to bed. So I'm going for the bed this time. And I just hopped right in in my dress. I didn't even take my clothes off. I just got in bed, put a blanket over my head, not in bed, but laid down for a nap. And that was it. I was gone 5 hours. Yeah. So and then I was like, all right. And then Mars slowly went forward. Now, what we had on Sunday was we had a new moon in Scorpio. And the new moon, in cast for the DC chart, because that's our country, but you can cast it for wherever. The new moon was having an act of passion, Arabic part of passion, with the Jupiter, the Saturn, or with the Jupiter, the Pluto, and the Athena. So we were being invited to be passionate as of Sunday night. And I think a lot of people on Sunday felt it shift, like, oh, I can breathe again, right? I can breathe again. And so now we're going forward, and everybody except Neptune, but he's helping us dream the new dream. Everybody's moving forward now. And so we're going to feel a lot more in charge of things, a lot more like we can do it, and much more like, okay, let me go. But we're still going to have some wicked dreams. This is like, it's that creative time, and a lot of the dreams have been like, those scared dreams, like I'm standing naked in front of an audience, or do I really know what I'm doing? I got up to do something and it didn't work, in terms of what people are reporting, because it's asking us to go into new territory. Or the heavens are inviting us into new territory, because they're going into new territory. And they're going places they haven't been in a long time, 29 years, 13 years, 12 years. So, yeah, it's big.
Yeah. That was the compounding effect last week. I also had a really hard time sleeping. And so it was all the intense energy, but then also being sleep deprived, it makes it even worse. So yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people out there can relate. Although I did actually feel a lot of creative energy last week too. There was a lot of like inspiration coming through, and sort of new horizons or new ideas that would be very expansive. And so, yeah, what you're talking about, those dreams, those are like anxiety dreams, right? I always think of those whenever I'm having those dreams. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling some sort of anxiety somewhere about something.
Or I'm getting ready for this new chapter. Like I'm going to go do something that, because remember, anxiety and fear feel the same in the body.
Right.
So when you go, oh, but then you're like, no, I'll be okay. I'm not going to be naked on any stage that I know about anytime soon, but okay, I'm having the naked dream. All right. That's right. Like, yes. And it's really honoring. I had one last night, and I didn't have anything except a blanket. So I wrapped myself in the blanket, and I'm walking around the blanket and hoping nobody says, take off your blanket, because I'm naked under the blanket, and I'm like, what is this naked dreams lately?
Right.
I'm a Virgo. We like to be naked. So maybe that's it. I don't know. Neptune's aspecting my sun, but it's a time of, oh, okay, ready or not, here we go. And it is, of course, we're still with Mars and his shadow, and we're still with these planets that are pretty big. So there can be some major changes. Right before I got on here, I'd taken a class a couple of weeks ago with a guy at the Young Foundation, and he just sent, that he had a medical thing kind of come up out of nowhere. So, remember, these are also times for us to recognize the sudden shifts in our lives that can change things, because these are big planets and they do cause shifts that can change things. So it can be a physical, it can be an emotional, it can be a work, it can be a aha. And as Mars retraces his steps from July 25th to September 9th, which he's going to do now for the third time, he's going to say, so now that you've seen it, what do you want to do about it? What's that new thing look like?
So I love the question that Jamie asked, our A-Team angel, that she asked before we went on live about, the things that are coming up now. Are they coming up for us to let go of, or are they coming up for us because we need to work with them still?
Either way. Remember, we had talked last week about everybody being their own authority.
Yes.
So you get to make a decision now. And you can say, okay, I want to work with this. This is something that's important to me to work with. Or, no, I'm not going to work with this. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to move it. I'm going to release it. So it can be either. Remember, you're your own authority now. That's what this whole year is about. Is, you're in charge of yourself and you get to make your choices. And of course, wherever you have that COVID clump is where you're being asked to make your choices. And then we go from there into the next chapter of, okay, now that I've made those choices, what do I want to do?
I would love to hear from the audience. If you are listening in a place where you can chat, how are you doing that? Like, where are you actually taking steps towards becoming your own authority, owning your own authority, your own sovereignty, whatever word you want to use? How are you doing that? I know yesterday my girls and I spent several hours. Finally, you've been along the ride with me for my whole gardening journey, right? which started in March with
Adventures in Maui, gardening.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be an online reality show, Amanda.
Oh, I don't think it'd be that interesting, but it started with the pots in the front, that had a so effectiveness rate. And so finally, it was like, we need to clear some area and actually put like garden beds down, which we've been working on for months. We now finally have it all set up. And yesterday at the Scorpio new moon, it was like, okay, let's plant, like, let's put the things in the ground. But you've heard me express my kind of sadness or anger or dissatisfaction with our reliance on big corporations for our very fundamental needs, like food, And so there's been this whole year for me has been a real conscious act of going to farmers markets, local stores, really just supporting the local community, because they're the ones we're the ones who care about each other, deep down. If any, and I'm on an island in the middle of the ocean, so it's even more, prominently.
Everything has to get brought into you. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, if and there's been times where the boats have not come to the islands. There's actually a period of time where and so it's like, okay, there's no imports. Now what? And I think for a lot of us, it's a good way to see things though. Like, if we had to be on our own, how would we do it? And not to incite fear, but also to create a sense of empowerment. Like, there are actually things we can do.
Yeah.
And so let's be doing them, whatever that is in your world, whatever feels important or compelling for you to be doing.
Yeah. And I think that's a good analogy. I know when my father had to go back to the farm. We bought a farm, actually. We moved from a little, half-acre house in the suburbs to 6 acres, which used to be a farm. So the barns were still there. The windmill was there. The land around had been sold off to a developer and built into houses. So we were like this little 6-acre oasis. But my father got into gardening. And of course, my parents believed in children slaves. And
Say what? I didn't hear what you said.
My parents believed in children slaves. We were, we had to work. That was part of our servitude in being in the family. Everybody had chores. So he had this whole thing like, go pick the peas, go weed, and we're all like, hey, like, what? What do you want? What do you know? Like it's your garden, you do it. And we were rebellion of the children slaves on the plantation there. But he would get into wars with the raccoons because they would eat the corn, and then we didn't pick the peas in time, and they were these little rocks, and then there was so much friggin' zucchini. I've never seen so much zucchini, and you realize like all this stuff you don't know,
Yes.
like raccoons eat corn, and my father's like, well, I'd be happy if they ate one ear, but they bite out of each ear of each stalk.
I know.
He was at war with the raccoons. So you realize how hard it is to grow your own food.
It's true, but
it's a lot of work.
But it also helps us connect so much more deeply with the rhythms of nature. So yesterday, we have someone helping us with the garden, and he was talking about manure, and we have horses next door. So I was like, can we just like go get the horse manure? And he's like, well, no, it needs to be like, it goes through a process for 7 to 9 months. I was like, oh, there's like all these little things I'm clueless about. And there's a complete acknowledgement of that. I'm not of any illusion that I'm
saying I know how to do this. Yeah.
All of a sudden I'm going to grow all of our food and we're never going to go to the store again. No, but what I'm seeing is just baby steps in the direction of learning of even the intention or desire to get closer to nature. That to me is all that it's about, is learn from nature, be more in tune, be more in the rhythm. And that helps us in all the areas of our lives. So then when we're trying to push things forward, it's like, well, that's not the way nature works. Nature has a time frame, and you need to like surrender to her time frame, unless you want to make yourself really sick and upset and, all the things that we do.
Yeah. Well, because we don't appreciate that whole time thing.
Yes.
I mean, that's the beauty of astrology, because we see it in our lives. All of us, when we started in January and went, oh, this will be 2 weeks. And then now here we are 11 months later going, oh, it's not till the end of next year, because we got a ways to go still.
Yeah.
That whole process of how long it takes and over time, and we have this concept of immediate success.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of times you'll read an article and it's like, well, they've been working on it 7 years, or they've been working on it almost 15 years, or they've been doing this for 30 years. And we hear Saturn. If we hear a 12-year cycle, we're hearing Jupiter. If we're hearing an 8-year cycle, oh, Amanda, you left. If you hear an 8-year cycle, we're hearing, she left, really? She turned off her mic and everything. I guess it's just me now. Where did Amanda go?
I'm sorry, I had to put the shades down because the sun was coming in and blinding me. I'm so sorry. I should have told you, but I was like,
she just disappeared.
And I'll come right back. Okay.
You're back. She's back. But yeah, so the just like, whoa, I mean, I do fly solo. I'm good with that, but you kind of freaked me out a little there, in a good way. So yeah, so this is our option to figure out how to do it. Now, the other thing that's happening this week, which is a little hard, and it is Venus in Libra, which is one of her favorite signs. She's on a world point. She's squaring Pluto on a world point. But Venus moves pretty quickly. So she is going to go through, she's going to square Athena. We're going to make decisions. She's going to square Pluto. We're going to be like understanding our power dynamics on a different level. She's going to square Jupiter and help us see a big picture. And then she's going to square Saturn. And she does that all this week. Boom, boom, boom. And this is an opportunity for us to do psychological integration of the stuff we've been going through, and to kind of look at the structure of our lives, look at the structure of what's going on and say, okay, that's been shifted and changed, and to integrate it, what we want to do with it. Now that it's changed, what do we want to do with it? And I think it's important, when we go through something like this, there's a lot of exhaustion that comes with these kinds of transits. People are just like tired, weary, they keep talking about COVID fatigue. And of course, I'm tired of COVID, right? But this is important because this is when you're going to be asked, how are you choosing to partner with it? So you're partnering with your garden and you're hearing manure and you're like, manure. And the guy goes, yeah, 9 months. And you're like, oh, 9 months. Oh, okay. Like, I can't just go get poop and put it on the thing, Well, you could, but it's not a good idea. So it's that, it's like, all right, like more, I have to do more. So I didn't have enough. I have a garden here. How do I continue to,
I have to work on it every day.
Now I have to work with it. There's process. So, and you might be like, I'm going to go to bed now, or however your moon is comforted. Right. But it's important for you to feel like, okay, I am connecting on a deeper level, so it's big. It's big and it's not easy, but it's messy. It's life. It's kind of messy, but it's okay. We're through all the stuff that says, and now we're in the, all right, now what are we doing about it? What are our choices?
Would you say now we're kind of also in preparation for the winter solstice, Jupiter, Saturn conjunction? Yeah.
Once planets finish their last station and sign, which both Jupiter and Saturn have done. Pluto's in there for a few more years, but they're done with it. And now it's that last station. I always kind of think of it as full steam ahead. I'm heading for Aquarius. Out of here. I don't want to do this anymore. And so there's an element of wanting to throw off stuff and be done with Capricorn. Of course, we can't be because, and I remember back when I was a baby astrologer and I did a reading for someone and she was having a pretty nasty Saturn transit. And we finished and she said, I'd like to come back. Now that I said, oh, yeah, come on back. So we go, okay, so now Saturn's going to your third house. She goes, what? I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, what do you mean Saturn's going to I thought I was done with that. And I'm like, I didn't know what to say. I said, well, no, you're not. I mean, he's still up there in the sky. He's just now moving to a new part of your chart. No.
Oh, poor thing.
I was like, yeah.
That is a hard realization.
I didn't know what to say because, she just got out of it and now she's like, what? And it's kind of like doing the laundry or cleaning the bathroom. You have to keep doing it. And you're kind of, I don't want to brush my teeth tonight. You got little kids. I'm sure they protest the teeth brushing. The routeness of, what do you mean I have to do that again? Mm-hmm. We were protesting with, what do you mean you want me to go weed the garden again? I did that last week. I'm not going to give you any allowance. I'm like, you're not giving me allowance anyway. You told me to go get a job when I was 16. I don't need your money to pick your garden. Rebellion. But then you're also like, really? Like I live in this house, so I have to go pick tomatoes for dinner? Yes. All right. I can pick tomatoes. I'm not weeding them. And so it's us making our choices about what we want to do next, what that next thing looks like. Mm-hmm. And I think if we know that, it makes it easier. But yes, Saturn's moving on to a new place. And he is like full steam ahead into Aquarius. Jupiter's full steam ahead into Aquarius. And they're meeting up. And they're going to start a 20-year cycle. So you go back and think about what you were doing May of 2000. So for me, that was starting my deciding, I'd finished all the year 2K stuff when I was working at Pepsi, and the team all split up in May, literally. Everybody went their own separate ways. And I went, I want to be an astrologer. And, it took about a year to be at full time, but I went home and did, work that I didn't really like, but I worked on building my practice. Because I knew that was my new vision, not the computer work anymore. So I think that's where we are. We're setting a new vision with the Saturn Jupiter in December. And so this is the preparatory time for that last of the 5 things that happened this year. So we had Saturn, Pluto in January. We had Jupiter, Pluto 3 times, April, June, now. And then last up is Jupiter and Saturn saying, okay, we're going to go work together for 20 years and grow your next chapter of life. So it's big.
Any of you who join us for the 2021 forecast panel, you're also going to be invited to the ceremony that we're going to be doing on the winter solstice for that shift into Aquarius. And so we're essentially bookending the year because we did the first ceremony / meditation. I mean, it's really, we come together and we acknowledge the energies and we seed intentions, and we're just real mindful of what's happening together in a group, which is, I always bring in astrology, talk about it. Yeah, it's really important. So we did it in January, and it was one of those moments where it's like, I know we're doing something really important and powerful, and like, what is right around the corner? We have no idea, but we know it's huge. Mm-hmm. And so this one feels really important too, this winter solstice, to close the year, to really take time to reflect, to see how far we've come through all of this challenge and adversity and all the things that have been so hard for all of us, and also look forward to the future. Like, so now what? Now what are we going to create? What are we going to bring into our realities? So we'll be doing that together too. So if you do register for the forecast, you'll also be invited to join us for that. And again, that's astrologyhub.com/2021 if you missed it.
And I think it's important to mention, it's going the last time, for the last 200 years, it's been in Earth.
Right.
And now this is the first conjunction in air in 800 years. So we're leaving the Earth and we're going to take off. We're going to fly. So it's really important for you, wherever the 0 Aquarius is. Now, Saturn snuck in there April 1st or so, and then June 30th. He was sitting in there just a little bit. And he kind of whispered, hey, maybe this. And and then he went back into Capricorn, and you're like, what did he just say something to me? did I hear something? Am I hearing an alarm here? What am I hearing? So when he goes back into Aquarius, which is the beginning of December, and then when Jupiter meets up with him, the two of them go, yes, you heard me. Now we're going to go fly. Air sign. We're going to go fly. How do you need to fly? You've been grounded. We've been keeping you down here on Earth for a while, and now you're going to take off. And we know after pandemics and wars, there's renaissances. There's a rebuild. There's a new chapter opening. And so that is why it's important, because consciously applying to the vision and saying, this is what I want to do. This is what my vision is. Now, in my case, the last time there was one in 80 also. So if you're older, there was one in 80. In my case, it was looking at it and going, I don't really want to work in computers anymore. I want to go be an astrologer. I have to make that migration happen. Right. And how do I get there? So it doesn't take off right away, but it's that vision. And here I am 20 years later talking to you guys, right, on Amanda's channel. And I'm sure if Amanda looked back at what she was doing in May of 2000, and she watches the arc of her life, now she's got this new community that she's formed with all you guys. And now Aquarius is the work of the community. So we're going into a new chapter of how we work together. And each and every one of you, as you tune into this podcast, carry it out to your friends, to your family. And when the stuff starts going and the stuff we've talked about, you kind of go, well, you're supposed to psychologically integrate all the changes from this year. And they all go, oh, and you don't even have to say astrology, but also the people that know you're into astrology go, what is going on? Is it like super intense? And you go, it's a 50 on a scale of 1 to 10, and you don't realize the work you're all doing with your family, with your friends, and the partner that goes, you believe in that astrology? All right, I'm going to indulge you because you're kind of, you're my partner and I like you. And then now they're like, so like, what's happening this week? What's the number? So recognize your role in this too. And you're going to be initiating a whole new 20-year ceremony, like it or not, everybody is, on December 21st. So we're all initiating and we're all beginning this new energy of, after all I've been through, how do I want to work with it? What do I think now after having witnessed all these changes? And don't underestimate the level of change there's been. These are planets that don't get together, but last time they got together was 38 years ago. So, it's a big shift. In my life, that was when my mom passed. My dad passed last year. My stepmother is leaving right now as we're recording this. She's in hospice and about to take off. And so I'm going to mark the end of all the elders because my aunt died this year. My uncle's really sick. So I'm kind of, I'm like, am I going to be the oldest one in the family? Pretty soon, not very many ahead of me on the escalator. But it's a shift in the reality of our structure, right? And all of us have to go, okay, structurally, where am I beginning this new cycle? And for that, you're going to look at 0 Aquarius. And the interesting thing about this is all these solstice planets, all these Capricorn planets have been meeting on the world point, which is everybody in the world is having the same transit at the same time. And then the conjunction on December 21st is also on the world point, on the Capricorn ingress, when the sun is at the lowest it goes. Of course, it's high summer for our Australian friends, but for us in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the beginning of the new season as the days get longer by a minute every day, right? So it's huge. I mean, these are really big global changes, and they're global in your life, certainly. And as you watch the lives of your friends and family, and your country, you see their global changes for everybody. And we have an opportunity now to kind of say, all right, after all that, what's my vision? What is it? What am I here to do? What's that about? What is it? And kind of think about it. And really, whether you do a ritual or not, you're getting one. You know what I mean? Like the planets are doing one for you. They're having a service together and they're going, okay, now we're starting a new 20 years. You ready? And to the extent you are, that's good. Or not, that's good too. And of course, I forgot to take my phone off. Sorry about that, Amanda.
That's okay. I forgot to put my shades down. And so the world point, the conjunction in January was on the world point, correct?
Yeah.
Were there any other ones throughout the year that were on the world point?
Yeah, the Jupiter-Pluto was on the world point.
Last week.
Yeah. 22.5 Capricorn. The sun is going to be on the world point with the Jupiter Saturn conjunction on December 21st. The new moon in Libra a couple weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, that was on the world point. The new moon that we just had on Sunday, trying to world point, so
is Is it unusual to have that many things happening on the world point in 1 year?
Yeah, that's why everybody went, it's going to be really big. It's going to be really
Right.
big.
Right.
This
It's
is
really
on the
big and
world
it's going to
point.
be
The whole
global.
world's going to go through it.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And New York has Mercury on the world point, right? New York City. So the virus came in here, one of the big ports, came in California. But we have 22 Capricorn. And I was watching that in the New York City chart going, when is this going to be? Subways, transportation, we rule. We have all the TV networks here. We have the advertising people here. We have, publishing industry here. We have all sorts of we have plays and musicals and all that here, writers and songwriters and, whatever. Mercury, we're a Mercury town. We don't have big houses, but we talk a lot. And so it was on our world point, right? So we were the first, we have Governor Cuomo, who's got planets aspecting the world point, going, like, go to home and use your masks. And we, Mercury in Capricorn on the world point. So yes, there are world points. And if you have planets on them, you will be known for that planet. What that planet, or angles, can be angles too. And also midpoints. So back a long time ago when my assistant first started working for me, I had, she had a production, she's a playwright, producer kind of person. So she had a production company and she said, can you help me on my fundraiser? I said, yeah. So I sat in a back room and for $25, kids would come back. They were all in their 20s. And I would do, their chart, like, like 5 things, send them off. So a couple of days later, she said to me, so can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. She said, you told some of them that they had planets on the world point, and then there were some of them you didn't tell. I said, yeah. She goes, well, what does that mean? I said, well, they're going to be famous for whatever the planet is. And she said, and the ones you didn't tell? I said, well, they're not going to be famous. And she goes, and it kind of, it had occurred to me that people left listening to me and went out and said, what'd she say to you?
Right. Of course.
And she was like, oh. I said, oh. Never occurred to me, but obviously the ones I said, oh, you have plants on the world point, going to be really, and one of them, one RuPaul's Drag Race, one of them is a Broadway actor now, one of them is a TV show, and they had it on the world point.
And I know everybody's going, what's the world point? How
What's
do I figure this out?
Well,
and also, does it mean anything aspecting it? So would it be like if something's opposing it or something's square to it or something? Okay. So tell them how to look at their chart and see this.
Well, first of all, has your world changed this year? And everybody's going, yes.
Yes. I must have something on the world point.
We all have something on the world point this year. So what they are is they're the season's ingresses. That's why doing the ceremony on December 21st is the ingress of the Capricorn season. That's one of the world points. So 0 of Cardinal, when the seasons begin, 0 Aries, 0 Cancer, 0 Libra, 0 Capricorn. That's a world point. Then we form a hard aspect to it. We do the cross quarters. If you do Beltane, Candlemas, Samhain, I never remember the other one, but there's the 4 of them. So 15 of the fixed. 15 Taurus, 15 Leo, 15 Scorpio, 15 Aquarius. And then we divide it again. We get 7.5 of the mutable. 7.5 Gemini, 7.5 Virgo, 7.5 Sagittarius, 7.5 Pisces. And then because that's here, and there's an empty energy over here, we do 22.5 of the cardinals, which is where all this stuff's been taking place at the 22.5 mark. Now you use a degree on either sign approaching. So, if you have stuff at 29 Pisces, that's right before 0 Aries, right? So the last degree of the mutables counts too, because it's 1 degree within. And those are the things that are hidden. So you don't know who made Post-it notes. But that guy had something at 0, at 29 Virgo, where he made you these wonderful little notes that you could write on, right? And then sometimes the person, isn't known in the world, but their invention is, like the person who did Squatty Potty. You might have seen him on Shark Tank, but I looked up their chart, when they were in Shark Tank. What a great idea, Squatty Potty. And they had planets not on the world point. Right. So, yeah. Okay. They had planets on the world point. You didn't know them, but you knew their invention.
So if you have planets, that's a lot of places right there. So,
well, it's 8 points. Yeah.
And does it mean famous in the world, could it mean like very well known in your community? Does it mean, it doesn't necessarily mean like you're some global figure. Obviously that would never work because not that many people could be that famous,
Right.
right?
Yeah, right, totally. But it also has a strong energy of you're known for that thing. And you can also have it progress. You know, that Andy Warhol quote, you can have 15 minutes of fame, you know, as something progresses to it and progresses off it, right? So like Nancy Kerrigan was an ice skater and she was pretty famous. Tanya Harding was famous for whacking her in the knees, you know, with a baseball club. So she had her little moment of fame and it migrated off. And then a few years ago, they had a movie about her, and wouldn't you know it, there it was back again. You know, it got migrated on the point of fame where they did a movie about Tanya whacking her in the knees with the baseball bat. So it
You know
doesn't
what
have to be
planet
permanent.
she had? Was that like Mars?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mars.
Whoa, that's fascinating.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what if you have
Yeah, so
several
it's
planets?
fun, and it, you know, and it kind of says, oh, and it, you know, when you look at a movie star's chart, a lot of times they have a lot of planets on the world points because they're famous, right? When you look at your chart, and it's famous for what? You know, what are you going to be known for? It's not just, you know, it doesn't have to be your work. It's what people know about you and why what they talk about you, or what you're recognized as being good at. And it can be local. It doesn't have to be, and it can be just known in your family, you know, but it is a thing you're famous for, or it's a thing that people recognize about you as part of your story. But it can actually literally bring fame. Yep.
Interesting.
And
And
in
if
the
you have
case,
several planets,
you can be very
and
well known. Yeah. Well,
it's
you
like,
remember when we look at astrology chart, we like to see everything 3 times. You know, otherwise it's just a passing fancy. But if it's in there at least 3 times, we know it's going to happen, because then it's part of your natal potential. Because your natal potential says, hey, I'm supposed to do this. This is part of my path. And I guess I need to do it. You get called to it. And then people recognize you for it.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
it's a fun point, but don't do it at cocktail parties.
no,
At least not with actors, you know.
don't do it for aspiring actors. That's yes, definitely.
No, you know, it was a good learning. I mean, but you know, a little, you know, you're going to be famous, you know, and they were like thrilled and they left. And then the other ones, I said, oh, you know, blah, 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 whatever, and they were not happy.
Oh.
But Rose got the $25, so you know that's good.
Oh my gosh.
But
Okay,
it hadn't even occurred to me, you know.
right. No, I can totally understand. You were just looking at the charts and telling me.
Yeah, just saying, you know, the top 5 things I saw, you know. So.
Right.
Mhm.
So, Anne, what else about this week? Any other aspects or anything that we
Sun
need
goes into Sagittarius.
All right.
We get out of Scorpio. I think the parts that we want to, and Mercury, of course, is leaving his shadow. He's been in his retrograde shadow for a while. He has one more opposition to Uranus. That's on the 17th. He's had 3. In my case, that's been my toilet, and then my clock's breaking, and who knows what the hell is going to happen this next one. It's an opposition energy that kind of kicks us out. Mercury has a nice aspect with dreams and wanting to organize our papers and our houses. Of course, the Venus-Pluto square, which I mentioned, the 15th, the 18th is for Jupiter. Venus squares Athena. Squares Jupiter the 16th, squares Athena the 16th, and squares Pluto, Saturn the 19th. And then Venus goes into Scorpio this week, so she gets more intense. And the sun goes into Sag on November 21st, and Mars is quiet. He is getting rid of the house, or changing the house energy. So if you've got your house up for scale, and then there should be a big dose of envy on November 17th because Jupiter squares Eris. So we're going to see a little envy pop where we have to figure out how to work with it.
What else besides envy could Eris?
Oh, she's a little mean. Lots of death. You know, that'll be when the death peaks happen. If you guys are on Facebook, there's an astrologer named Chris Brennan, and a couple of days ago, Brennan, I think. He's got kind of blondish hair, kind of a long Scorpio face. If you're not friends with, you can follow him. But he did a post that compared the Jupiter-Pluto conjunctions with the increases in the coronavirus. So he mapped them. Here's Jupiter-Pluto met. Here's when the coronavirus took off. So it's like, because Jupiter is lots of, Pluto is death, and Eris she's a war goddess. So Jupiter square Eris is fighting over death, so, but she's not been particularly behaving lately. So she's a harder energy. She's a goddess of discord. So I guess we'll reframe her where you feel discordant and you feel a little rah, 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 that energy needs to be worked with, because that is a secondary emotion, something else going on underneath. All the anger that we see, secondary emotion. What's underneath it? What do where is that getting fueled by? Of course, we got Mars and Aries, but we also know there's something underneath that's making you hook into it. So you're hooked in. What are you hooked in on? Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. Well, and sometimes discord is like a knot that's creating the opportunity for a new flow of that energy, but you got to deal with the thing.
Yeah. Well, it's like, that little chain, when you get your chain in the knot, and you sit there with it trying to get it. This stuff.
Yes.
But it starts to feel better. That's the good news. It's not nearly as intense as last week.
Okay. All right. So what we have is a 7-8 week, at 7 or 8 week on the intensity scale. Things are starting to move forward. They're not going to, like, everything miraculously is worked out and, we're off to the races, but the momentum's going to start feeling like it's moving forward. We're going to start feeling more capable to handle it. This is a particularly creative time. You also may be experiencing some anxiety, and that may be coming through in your dreams. A lot of times, anxiety is basically when we're living in the future,
right,
and we're projecting what the future is. So doing things that you can to stay present and aware of where you're at right now may help with some of that anxiety. Really considering, and maybe you wrote in the chat, if you did, awesome. If not, just take some time to consider, how are you doing own authority, becoming your own authority? Like, what is that looking like in your life? How are you actually doing that? Venus and Libra on the world point, this may bring about some additional exhaustion, some sleepiness, making choices about what's next. So we're starting to actually make choices and put the next plan into place for where we're going.
Psychologically integrating all the stuff that's gone on this year.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, okay, so all this has happened. So what does it mean? And what am I going to do with it? Right.
Yeah. And we're going to feel like we actually can make choices now. And I forgot one thing. There were a couple of weeks ago, in the beginning of September, there was a hammer of Thor with the sun going through, and then there was a hammer of Thor with Venus going through.
Yeah.
There's one this week with Vesta going through. Now, Vesta's the home and hearth, so sometimes that's getting rid of stuff. I broke a couple dishes in the kitchen yesterday, but it is, it's what's your home and hearth and what you want to get rid of in that, or the nesting energy. So if you've got a real estate thing going with people, or you've got, you're selling your house, the hammer of Thor can kind of help that move or not. Kind of clank through stuff. I had an inheritance issue in a reading the other day, and like her steps to take to get herself off the deed, so, and getting the money for the house, so, using the hammer to move through things. So it is a hammer. It's not as potent as the Venus and the Sun one, although I have to say both times I was whacked by the hammer. So I saw it coming again with this thing going through Virgo this week, and I thought, Vesta's trying to get me. And so the hammer for Vesta was the 18th. You get aware of the hammer, and she is, I should have written this down. Sorry, Amanda. She is active the 23rd of the week, and also she's active the 15th. So the hammer is the 15th through the 23rd. But that also can be, people clearing things out, people moving, people, what am I letting go? What am I releasing?
Okay. All right. We have setting a new vision. We're the 20-year cycle, but that's more the winter solstice. Yeah.
Right. I want you thinking about it though.
Thinking about it now. Yes.
Because what we're in, what the Scorpio planets are doing to the Capricorn is they're in a closing sextile. It's a working energy. And the aspect is the aspect of passion. You know, they're on the point of passion. So what's your passion? What do you want to do next? You know, like a lot of this is clarifying for many people what they don't want to do anymore.
Mm.
I don't want to do that. I see that. I don't want to do that anymore. Well, what do you want to do? What does that passion look like? And it's Scorpio passion. So it's not necessarily got words yet. So on the new moon in Sag, it'll maybe have some more words. But we're also, with this new moon, we're entering into eclipse season. And we know eclipses, I always go, the eclipses are coming, the eclipses are coming. And the eclipses, there's one on November 30th, a full moon eclipse at 8. And then there's another one on the 14th of December, a new moon eclipse total on the south node. So that's big. And then we go into the, that's release, go, giant cosmic let go. And then next. So you don't have to do it yet, but the ritual for the Scorpio new moon, which is this week, if you haven't done it yet, all the moons are nice. The sun and the moon actually, the moon in Capricorn actually has a nice closing aspect of a sextile to the sun. And all those cardinal moons, I've been like, cardinal moon, careful. But I'm like, oh, it's a good one this week. So the energy as we're going towards, so kind of think of that balsamic phase, when you see the moon getting ready, smaller, going to the sun, that's what the sun and the moon are doing, going to the COVID clump. They're slowly going and releasing into it. So psychological integration time.
We did in the inner circle yesterday, we did a meditation on lava, on the volcano, and how lava destroys everything in its path. But as it's doing so, it's literally creating new land. So all these Hawaiian islands were made out of lava flow. And so as the lava dumps into the ocean, it's creating new land, which creates new places to explore, new opportunities for life. I mean, a lot of people would say Hawaii is quote unquote paradise. So that destruction actually then makes room for something entirely new. So that we were exploring that Scorpio theme of death and rebirth and what it enables and how it is a very natural cycle, obviously. Yeah. Okay. So we're getting ready for that big intention setting that we're going to be doing December 21st. So right now you could be just sitting with the questions. And if we don't have words for those things yet, maybe focusing on the qualities, like what qualities do you want to bring into your life? More love, more passion, more vitality, more freedom, more mobility, whatever it is, but bringing in those qualities for now. And then maybe the how or what will start to crystallize as we move towards Sagittarius. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. And then, this question of what is my vision? What am I here to do? We have an opportunity to organize dreams. And there could be some envy coming in. I always like to think of envy as an indicator. So if I see something and I feel envious about it, it's like, wow, that's just showing me that I would like to embody more of that, that I'm seeing in that person or in that, that means that's just a cue that that's something that I need to focus on bringing out in me. And I mean, that's simplifying it. I know envy is a really, really tough one envy and jealousy are really hard ones to work with.
Right. But it helps if you name it. It really just does. When I grew up, my aunt was a little envious of my mom, and my grandmother didn't do anything about it. So my mother was very clear whenever there was envy in our house. She would say, there's the green-eyed monster. Oh. She named it. So you had to own it. The good news was, when I'm envious of something, I'm like, I'm envious. I can name it. And then I can work with it. Because once anything is named, we can work with it. Once we know what it is, once it has a name, literally, we can work with that energy. And my aunt, on the other hand, didn't really do anything. So she raised a couple kids that had it. And my cat's he loves envy. He's a Scorpio guy. He is the second cat, of course. Who does mom love better, right? Yeah. So at any rate, so her kids, her son, more than her daughter. Her daughter was more the victim of the envy, but they really had to work on that in their lifetime because it never was addressed. So it's helpful to name envy, because when you name it, it becomes a little less potent. It doesn't mean it goes away, but it lets you name it and work with it and own it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because then it's not gonna be so hard. And I think of envy and jealousy as a little different. Jealousy is, gee, you have great flowers, Amanda, where'd you get them? You go to me, I picked them in my garden. I'm like, really? All right. So I don't have a garden. I live in New York. Where do I get my flowers, right? But I can get them. Envy is, you have something I don't have and I want it. And you have it. It's got a little more of an edge to it. Now, when Viola Davis won for The Help, she was nominated for Academy Award, she was on Oprah afterwards, and Oprah was asking her about her career and how it had been, and they were showing all these things. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember her in that movie. She really worked her butt off, and she gets there. And Oprah, she goes, well, I really worked hard. She said, I really thrilled. She said, but I have to tell you, I wasn't prepared for the envy. And Oprah said, yeah, the envy. I know about the envy, right? And so envy's got a little bit of a darker edge to it. But if it's named, you name it or they name it, it's in the room and it's got a name, and it isn't as powerful.
Yeah. It's interesting because I have 2 daughters with a lot of Scorpio, and I don't have a lot of Scorpio. So it's an interesting one for me to navigate as a parent, because it just seems elusive to me at this point, the tools that could help with it, aside from naming it, and also being grateful for what you do have. It's like, yeah, Anne, you don't have the flowers from your garden, but what do you have in New York?
I have a black cat on my desk.
Yes, exactly.
You don't have a black cat on your desk.
I do have a black dog roaming around, but it's.
Oh, your dog is better than my cat. Is that what you're saying, Amanda?
Yes, dogs are. Yeah. No, but that's a mental thing. What I've noticed is it very much takes over the body. And so it's something that needs to be dealt with, not just in the mind of like, well, but I do have good things. It's like, that's only going to get you so far. So that, somatic experience of moving that energy, because I have also heard that it's an extraordinarily powerful energy when people become masterful in working with it and transmuting it and alchemizing it and channeling it in productive ways. But it's one of the hardest ones to master. So it's interesting.
Well, because it comes from a harder space.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from a space where you're like, how do I manage that? I don't have that, but I want it,
Right.
And so it's got a drive to it that perhaps some of the other, and I think it's kind of very much about war, jealousy. You're not necessarily going to kill somebody for, but war, you're going to go, you have that and I want it. And if I got to get rid of you, I got to kill you to get it. It's got a darker edge. Jealousy, I can go buy flowers. I can go out my door. There's a flowers right around the corner. I can get flowers. They can look just as nice as yours.
Yeah.
But envy you can't get. It's the other person has it. And
it's like, you're never going to be Oprah. So if you're envious of Oprah, you're in trouble. Yeah. Yeah.
It can be your thing.
Right.
But we externalize, not this year because we've been sat back in our Saturns, but we externalize a lot of the stuff that we think they have that and I want it. And so I'm going to pick them because then I'm going to get their thing, or they're going to help me get they're going to help me get what they have. And, and it's got a really weird energy. Yeah. I recommend when people are running into envy, Cinderella and Her Sisters, The Envied and the Envying by Barry and Ann Ulanoff, because there isn't a lot out there on envy, and there should be. Right. Because I think if we name it, it calms it down. I hated it when my mother called it on me, but I knew it was there, Well,
I like that she called it the green-eyed monster too. It makes it like, this is a destructive energy that what I've noticed too is it doesn't only it really destroys the envious person as well. And it creates a lot of toxicity in the environment for everybody. It's definitely, so what'd you say the name of that book was?
Cinderella and Her Sisters, The Envied and the Envying.
Wow.
Because it affects both people, right?
Right.
And Cinderella was envied by her stepsisters, right?
By who?
By Barry and Anne Ulanov, Ulanov.
Ulanov. Barry and Anne Ulanov. All right, that sounds fascinating.
It's a great book. And it helps you, because people don't teach you how to cope with it.
Exactly. That's
and
been
my
the
mother
thing.
named it, which made it go away. And I have a really good friend named Lorraine. And Lorraine was on a bus one day, and there's a mother and a little girl, and the little girl's like 2.5, and really cute and charming, and all the people on the bus were like, "Oh, she's so cute, she's so cute." And the little girl's kind of sitting there, and Lorraine's sitting next to the woman, and she can feel the envy in the woman aimed at this little girl. And she leans over and she goes, "You really hate her, don't you? You really hate her. She's so cute, and everybody likes her, and nobody appreciates how hard you work. Nobody even sees you anymore." And the woman went, and Lorraine said, "It's okay." But she said, "I wanted to protect that little girl.
Wow.
So I named the envy." Now imagine you're sitting next to some lady on a bus and she does that to you.
You hate my child. Oh my gosh. That's intense.
Well, don't hate your child.
Right.
Don't be, and a lot of times, you can have a parent that's envious of you, or a mother-in-law, or a partner. You get suddenly successful and then they're envious of you. I mean, it's a hard energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they want what you have. Yeah.
Well, it's good. It feels important to talk about and to like you said, name it. And so we can be aware of it in ourselves. We can be aware when we're the target of it. And I love that you offered that book as a starting point for tools. It's really good.
Yeah.
All right. So that's some good Scorpio intensity for us.
It's a new one in Scorpio. We had to go there.
Exactly. Good. All right. Well, thank you everybody so much for being here. And thank you for the weather. Remember to sign up for the forecast event. It's free. You're going to hear from 13 astrologers about 2021, the major themes, the really like the high points of the year, what we're looking for this new cycle that we have. What's that?
It's a renaissance.
It's a renaissance. Yeah. So it's going to be a really interesting event. And it's also featuring the inner circle guides for next year. So for those of you who are in the inner circle, you're going to get to see all of them together all at once. For those of you not in the inner circle, which is our monthly membership program for students who want to learn from a different astrologer every month, get astrological tools, be in community, all that good stuff. You're going to get to meet the astrologers and see if they're the kinds of people that you would like to learn from. So it accomplishes a lot. It gives us a lot of information. Plus it introduces you to the inner circle. Oh, and it's the kickoff event for our inner circle membership open in December. So we only open the doors to the membership a couple times a year. So this will be your opportunity to get into the membership if you would like to. All right. So it's astrologyhub.com/2021.
Good.
And you're awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so
have a good week.
Yeah, everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of our community. And as always, thank you for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.